In her essay, The Service Berry, professor and botanist and enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer writes these words. She writes, "I have never felt such a kinship to my namesake, Robin, as in the moment when we are both stuffing our mouths with berries and chortling with happiness. The bushes are laden with fat clusters of red, blue, and wine purple in every stage of ripeness. So many you can pick them by the handful. I'm glad I have this pail, and I wonder if the birds will be able to fly with their bellies as full as mine. This abundance of berries feels like a pure gift from the land. I have not earned, paid for, nor labored for them. There is no mathematics of worthiness that reckons that I deserve them in any way. And yet here they are, along with the sun and the air and the birds and the rain gathering in the towers of the cumulus clouds. You can call them natural resources or ecosystem services, but the robins and I know that they are gifts. We both sing gratitude with our mouths full." Dr. Kimmerer is speaking about service berries, or we often call them June berries here in Philadelphia. I had never had one before I moved to this city, but they're increasingly popular decorative street trees, it seems, in my neighborhood in West Philly. And there's two well-established trees that we in our family frequent every Juneberry season, and a couple of younger trees that are planted right next to our local playground, which get some more rough small hands on a regular basis, and we try to be more gentle with. If you haven't, how many of you have had Juneberries before? How many of you have no idea what we're talking about? Okay, service berries, Juneberries. Oh my gosh, guys. Okay, if you're in West Philly, Cedar Park Playground, there's a couple of little trees. That's where you can find them. But in other parts of the city, I think there's a lot of them as well. If you haven't had a Juneberry, this is how Kimmerer describes them. She says, "Imagine a fruit that tastes like a blueberry crossed with the satisfying heft of apple, a touch of rose water, and a minuscule crunch of almond-flavored seeds. They are delicious." We call them Juneberries. They're around in June, so you can't find them quite yet, but those trees are beginning to blossom right now. They're delicious berries that literally hang over the West Philly sidewalks like these South Philly figs that Ross Gay's poem spoke about earlier. So abundant that they seem to fill the bellies of all the local birds and the local children and still have plenty to spare in their short season where they are ripe. Abundance, unearned abundance. I will admit, friends, that it has been hard to write a sermon speaking to abundance this week. In just the past couple of weeks of conversations with you all and with other friends in my life, I've heard from federal employees who fear being fired or losing union protections or benefits. I've heard from elders worried about the wild behavior of the market and what it will mean from their carefully planned retirement funds. I've heard from students and other young professionals who have no idea how they will pay ballooning student loan payments. You've told me about the funding drying up for your work and for your clients' bare necessities, of ethical dilemmas as you try to figure out how much you can risk in order to push back against mandates to erase words like diversity and equity and inclusion from your workplace websites and from your programs. Not to mention just these regular challenges that so many of us face with making ends meet in our paycheck-to-paycheck lives. These do not feel like abundance times to me. If anything, I think a huge number of us fear that resources are about to become catastrophically more scarce if they haven't already. And as much as we may feel awash in gratitude when we encounter a street tree heavy with Juneberries or figs or a wild blueberry bush somewhere, in a city like ours, we know that we cannot survive only on foraging. The abundance of the berry trees is not enough for us. But in her essay, what Kimmerer reminds us that is that even, or maybe especially in the times of greatest uncertainty in our lives, that it is a lie that personal accumulation of resources is what will keep us safe and steady. It's a lie that personal accumulation of resources is what's going to keep us safe. Self-sufficiency is not the key to a good life, my friend and colleague Jen Crow reminds me when she speaks about a middle-of-the-night fire that destroyed all of her family's possessions 8 years ago. Thankfully, it spared their lives and their health. But she writes that she had been taught that security was something that rested on her ability to provide financially. And then she found that all of their possessions were suddenly gone. The financial future was deeply uncertain for her and for her family. This idea that she was supposed to be able to somehow fix it on her own, she says, was clearly not real. Self-sufficiency for her was not only impossible in that particular crisis, as insurance adjusters denied claim after claim, and they realized that very little money would arrive to replace what they lost anytime soon. Self-sufficiency is not only impossible, it's simply just not a formula for a good life. The way that people came together to support Jen and her family in the wake of that fire at basically a moment's notice in the middle of the night gave Jen a deep in her bones knowledge of the truth of some ideas that she had been preaching for years but didn't know as deeply as she knows now. When people welcomed her family into their home in the middle of the night, she says that she knew that there would be enough. When people she knew and people she didn't know brought clothes and toys and shoes to her children, Jen said that she knew that when we share what we have, there is enough. When friends offered practical and spiritual and emotional support, Jen said that she knew that relationships are what matter most. Relationships. Relationships are what keep me and us knit into the world, she writes, knit into this web of life. And it is our relationships that are going to be the most important thing in our lives, always. Dr. Kimmerer says that our first response to the unearned gift of something like a perfectly ripe fruit hanging in our path, if we pay attention, our first response, if we're paying attention, is gratitude. That feeling of delight and luck and wonder and simple pleasure from a gift that comes without any toil on our behalf. Grateful. We are grateful to the tree. We are grateful maybe to that neighbor who pointed it out to us or invited us to share. Grateful to this congregation where maybe you just learned about Juneberries. Grateful to whoever had that foresight, however many years ago, to plant that particular tree right there, right in your path. And if our first response is gratitude, Dr. Kimmerer writes, then our second is reciprocity. We feel gratitude, and then we want to give a gift in return. These are human instincts that all of us share. Even when they're sometimes a little buried, I know that there's some people that we feel like those instincts towards gratitude and reciprocity are pretty buried. But these are human instincts. Feeling grateful when we receive an unexpected or unearned gift, followed by the instinct to give a gift in return. And so if you're comfortable, I want to invite you to close your eyes, whether you're here with us in the sanctuary or here with us on Zoom. Close your eyes for a moment and think of some gift, some unexpected or unearned gift that you have received. It came as a surprise to you, or you didn't feel like you deserved it. Think about that gift. Think about what it felt like when you received that gift. You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. Maybe it was a surprise. Were you maybe so moved by that act of generosity that your eyes welled up in that moment? Did you feel a powerful sense of relief because you really needed that gift, even if you didn't want anyone to know how much you needed it? Did you make a commitment to yourself or to the person who gave you that gift that you would find a way to pay it back or to pay it forward because of how much it meant to you. You can open your eyes now. When we keep our hearts soft, and when we truly pay attention to the world, those instincts towards gratitude and reciprocity are stronger than the tallest mountains. I see them all the time in this community. I see them when someone is in a bind. Maybe they lost their ride to a medical appointment, and we put out a request to the caring team email lists. And an addition to the caring team request, by the way, the appointment is tomorrow. Or, by the way, you would need to leave your house at 5:30 in the morning and spend 3 or 4 hours round trip driving someone to their appointment. Or, you may not even know the person that you are driving. Who knows if you even like the person or will like the person that you're driving. These requests go out all the time, and time again, I caution the people who make the request that I don't know for sure that we'll be able to help, that we may not have enough notice, or the time commitment might be too large. And time again, someone volunteers to help. Time and time again, multiple people offer to help. Sometimes it's within minutes of the request going out. Strangers help one another here in ways that move me every single week. And more often than not, the person who was helped seeks another way to help someone else in this community or elsewhere, or they tell me a story of someone else that they have tried to help, in part because of how inspired they were by the care that they received here. As the years go on, I think about us more and more as a mutual aid society. Linguist Daniel Everett wrote in a story that he was learning from a hunter-gatherer community in a Brazilian rainforest. He tells this story is told by Dr. Kimmerer in the Service Berry. He writes of this time when he was in this rainforest, and he says a hunter had brought home a sizable kill, far too much to be eaten by his own family. And so the researcher, presumably Daniel Everett, asked how he would store the excess meat. Smoking and drying technologies were well known already in that part of the world. Storing was possible. But the hunter was puzzled by the question, store the meat? Why would he store the meat? Instead, he sent out an invitation to a feast. And soon the neighboring families were all gathered around his fire until every last morsel was consumed. And this seemed like maladaptive behavior to the researcher, to the anthropologist and linguist, who asked again, given the uncertainty of meat in the forest, why didn't he store the meat for himself? That's what the economic system that this anthropologist would have expected in his own home. That's what our culture would expect. Store my meat, the hunter said. I store my meat in the belly of my brother. I store my meat in the belly of my brother. My friend knows that relationships are what matters most, and I think we all know that in this community as well. They matter most for our hearts and souls. That's the easy place. We know where they matter. And they matter also for our ability to survive in times that feel uncertain and in times that feel scarce. And they matter most for our ability to be our best selves in times of abundance, when the hunt or the fruit of the tree is more than any of us can eat alone and we wish to share. In relationships, in these human ones and in the interdependent web of life of which we are all a part, when we pay attention and when we keep our hearts soft, unearned gifts are met with an overflowing gratitude that spills forth into gifts that we wish to give other people and give back to the earth, give back and give forward. And what the earth teaches us and what networks of relationships teach us is that there will be enough, that when we share what we have, there is enough. And that enough may not be a hoard, and it may not feel like perfect plenty in every moment, in every day. It may not be the standard of living we expect or are used to. But even if self-sufficiency wasn't impossible, And it is impossible. Even if it wasn't impossible, it would never be the key to a good life. The good life where bellies are full and wounds are tended, where every head has a roof over it and the hearts and souls are filled with love, this good life comes from relationships. It doesn't come from big bank accounts. We know that we have the resources within this human community here on earth today. We have the resources to make the good life possible for every single person on this planet, even while ending our toxic extraction and commodification relationship with nature. It's abundantly clear that there is enough here on this earth today for everyone. Dr. Kimmerer writes, I don't think that market capitalism is going to disappear anytime soon. The faceless institutions that benefit from it are too entrenched. We are too used to it. But she says, I don't think it's pie in the sky to imagine that we can create incentives to nurture a gift economy, this kind of reciprocal economy that runs right alongside the market economy, where the good that is served is community. Because after all, what we crave is not trickle-down faceless profits or full bank accounts and no relationships. What we crave is reciprocal face-to-face relationships, to be able to trust one another and care for one another and be cared for, which are naturally abundant but are made scarce by the anonymity of large-scale economics. We have the power to change that, she writes. We have the power to develop the local reciprocal economies that serve community rather than undermine it. We know we have that power because we're doing it here in this community and have been doing it for 228 years. Ross Gay writes, I have twice in the last 30 seconds rubbed my sweaty forearm into someone else's sweaty shoulder, gleefully eating out of each other's hands on Christian Street in Philadelphia, a city, like most, which has murdered its own people. This is true. We are feeding each other from a tree at the corner of Christian and 9th. Strangers, maybe never again. My friends, in this time of uncertainty, whichever fears you are feeling, may we remember that there is enough. May we feed one another, care for one another, store our meat in each other's bellies. May we be strangers never again. Amen, and blessed be.
Hi, I'm Reverend Abby Tennis, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Reverend Alexandre da Silva Soto, and my pronouns are they, them, and theirs.
And we are the ministers of the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where it is our mission to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world. We're so glad you watched this video, and we hope that its message connects with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for Zoom services Sunday morning at 11 a.m. or come in person at 2125 Chestnut Street, Center City, Philadelphia.
Whether you join in person or online, in these services you'll hear messages like you just heard. You'll get a chance to sing together, pray together, and even greet one another in coffee hour afterwards, whether you're brand new or a longtime member.
You can always find a Zoom link to our services and more about what to expect on Sunday mornings on our website, philauu.org, philauu.org. The link is below.
If you are connecting with this message and feel moved to give to the mission of this congregation, we invite you to click on the link below again and follow the prompts to give, or send a text message to 215-709-5095. And again, follow the prompts.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, please share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.
See you soon.